into other dimensions. He's had this being called Lam, who appeared, who just looks exactly like the gray aliens. And he continually was trying to bring back these old gods by tearing open these dimensional doorways. And it went into another generation. Disciples of Crowley helped usher in major developments in this. Any of you may have heard of Jack Parsons. He's one of the fathers of American rocketry. He was also a disciple of Aleister Crowley and the founder of JPL Laboratories. Wernher von Braun said that the American space program could not have existed without Jack Parsons. The other one in this little team was L. Ron Hubbard, who was a disciple of Aleister Crowley. And Hubbard, of course, went on to come up with Dianetics and found the religion of Scientology. The less said about that, the better. Anyhow, these guys got together and did what was called the Babylon working. And they used a red-headed woman as a medium, and they tried to rip open the dimensional doorway all the way. And they apparently succeeded in doing it because something awful came through. And within a couple of years, Jack Parsons blew himself up in a rocketry accident. His jet fuel exploded. And of course, L. Ron Hubbard got out of that whole thing and decided it was much more secure to start a fake religion and get rich off it. So, you know, and it's going on into this generation as well. Here we see a comparison between this Lam, this is the being Crowley called up in 1918, and a classical gray alien that started showing up in the 1960s. Look how similar they look. As I said before, these were workings that were intended to open up doorways into other dimensions and permit dark gods to come in and resume their reign on Earth. See, in this cosmology, these beings believe that the good gods, like, you know, the God of the Bible, they came and threw these people out and cast them into other dimensions where they're trapped. And so these nasty black magicians are trying to awaken them. And look what has happened in our world and in our society in the last generation, how much things have, I hate to say it, but gone to hell in a handbasket. And I think a lot of it is because of the magical workings that these people have done and the evil things that they've let into our society. Now, to bring this to a conclusion, that one of the things that really touched me when I was a young person, I was kind of into science fiction books. Got them at the public library, and one of the books I read was a book by Arthur C. Clarke, who is now the only living giant of the early golden age of science fiction left. There was this, they kind of called him the Blessed Trinity, so to speak, of Isaac Asimov, Robert Allen Heinlein, and Arthur C. Clarke. The other two have passed away. And Clarke is still alive, although he's quite old by now. Anyhow, he wrote this book in 1953, an incredibly provocative vision. And I need to share this with you because I think it'll help you understand what's happening here at the end of days. In this book, and the material in this book has been copied. You'll recognize some of the scenes that are also in Independence Day. Huge UFOs come to Earth. Giant UFOs are hovering over all the major cities. The Secretary General of the United Nations is contacted by these people who identify themselves as the overlords. And they say they are here to watch over us. And they will not let anybody see us until they've been here for 50 years. But the Secretary General is taken up every now and then to the ship to meet with them, and he looks at them through a one-way mirror, and he can't see them, but they can see him. And he meets with the overlord leader, who's called Carolyn. What happens is, 50 years after their arrival, they appear in person. And guess what they look like? They happen to be gigantic and red-skinned with horns and cloven hooves and a tail. These are the overlords. And they explain their purpose, that they have watched us as we entered into our nuclear infancy, our development of an atomic bomb, of hydrogen bombs, of nuclear power and space travel, because this is the end of humanity's childhood. And they say that the children that are now being born on the earth will no longer be human. They will be superhuman. And that they're here to midwife this birth. And basically the story ends with children being born all over the world that are like prodigies. They're geniuses. They have awesome psychic abilities. And before you know it, the human race basically is ended. And this is where the famous line that Clark is often quoted as saying. He said, "The earth is the cradle of mankind, but mankind can't live in a cradle forever." And so basically the earth is destroyed in a burst of light, and all these superhuman children fly off into the cosmos. And that's childhood's end. Now this incredibly evocative vision is, I believe, very prophetic. That the beings that are now being brought into the world through this genetic manipulation, through the black magic and black science I've been talking about, the Antichrist was born in 1966, according to Satanists. On June 6, 1966, 666, you know. And as he aged, as he matured, they started targeting, beginning with my generation, the baby boom generation. Look what they did, you know, drugs, alcohol, free sex, all this bizarre stuff. They introduced the use of powerful hallucinogens that were originally developed by the CIA. People like Timothy Leary said that if you took enough LSD, your genes would mutate, and you would become what he called Homo noeticus, new man, and that you would become the next step in human evolution. Now, unfortunately, he was right. LSD does cause genetic mutation, but there's not really any such thing as a good mutation. They're almost always bad. People are born with birth defects. And, of course, Timothy Leary himself died of prostate cancer a couple of years ago. Now we have the new thing that's coming along, the supposed indigo children. I don't know if any of you have heard of this. But they're called indigo children because in Hinduism, they have this system that's called chakras. These are energy centers that go up the body. And the highest level chakra, the color that it emanates is indigo, if you can see auras. And so these indigo children are children that are born prodigies. You may have seen some of them on television shows like 60 Minutes or Prime Time Live. Some of these children are 9 or 10 years old and they're getting PhDs in advanced mathematics. Some of them are brilliant writers already. Some of them are brilliant musicians. And a lot of them have extraordinary psychic gifts. What's going on here? Is this childhood's end? Well, the New Age wants us to believe that they are the salvation of the world. But let me tell you something. In our ministry, we've run into a few of these indigo children that were born into Christian families. And remember, every good gift and every perfect gift comes from the Father of lights, James tells us. And even though these New Age people are deceiving themselves into thinking that this stuff is somehow theirs, that it's their mojo, it's their magic, whatever you want to call it. We dealt with some of these children in deliverance, and what we found is they're incredibly gifted, incredibly spiritually sensitive children that just need to have themselves be set free by the power of the Holy Spirit. And then, can these kids move in the area of the gifts of the Spirit, in the area of prophecy? I mean, we met one such child over in London. The case was so severe, the parents actually flew us over to London to help the child. An extraordinary young lady, 8 or 9 years old. And that child is going to do something for the Lord, let me tell you. And I am hopeful about this because I think, again, whatever Satan tries to do, Yahweh's like the master chess player, and he's 10 moves ahead. And I would just counsel you to really, those of you who are younger, who have young children, love them, pray for them, pay attention to them, because I think children nowadays are being born with some very special stressors and some very special gifts, because that's how it works down here, unfortunately. If you don't have challenges,